Every barber's been there. That moment when a conversation with a client takes an unexpected turn. My name's Spree. I've been a barber for almost 15 years, owned a barber shop for 10, and now operate a private suite. Today we're going to talk about uncomfortable client conversations. We're going to hit three major categories: complaints, price discussions, and boundaries. So let's talk about it. First, let's talk about that awkward conversation of, that's not what I wanted. The first thing you gotta do is listen, because whatever they're about to tell you is what they feel about the situation, and it's valid. Their feelings are valid. And don't just listen in hopes of waiting for when you can respond. Listen in order to understand what they're telling you. Put yourself in their position. Try to understand what they're trying to say, where they're coming from. Stay quiet, let them know that you're listening, and let them be done. Fully get it out before you respond. While you're listening, make sure that you're distinguishing what they're telling you. Is it a technique issue or is it a communication breakdown? Because the majority of mistakes take place during the consultation. You didn't confirm with them to make sure that you both understood what they wanted, what they were meaning when they said certain things. That's usually where the majority of things occur. But if their issue is about a particular technique you used and the effect that it had on their hair, make note of that, because it's not a communication breakdown. That's certainly something that you might be able to fix. After the client explains themselves and feels heard, and you've been able to respond and figure out exactly what went wrong, then your job is to offer solutions. Whether it's a complimentary fix or a refund, or even if it's just a simple explanation as to why what they were wanting wasn't actually feasible for their hair. Another awkward complaint out of clients' mouths is, my last barber did it differently. Now, we as professionals know that there's tons of different schools of thought when it comes to hair, and depending on where you went to school will depend on the philosophy that they had. So the plan of attack on certain haircuts can be completely opposite, vastly different than other hair professionals. It is important to acknowledge this client's experience without diminishing your expertise. Explain your technique and why you choose to do it the way you do, as well as how it applies to their hair. Not gonna lie, before I entered the hair industry, I had a situation where I got a terrible haircut from a salon. And I have short hair, I've had short hair for decades. But I didn't know really the difference between a barber and a cosmetologist at this point. Just knew that like they were licensed to cut hair. So it's an assumption of the member of the public that if you know how to cut hair, you know how to cut hair, no matter which, whether it's barber or cosmetologist. And I'll be honest, the person whose chair I was in, when she voiced the all roads lead to Rome statement, when I told her that the way she was going about cutting my hair was very much not the way other people had gone about cutting my hair, when I asked for the same type of haircut, it really put a bad taste in my mouth. And rightfully so, because at the end of that haircut, it was terrible. It was not what I had gotten in the past. And that's not even saying from a barber's perspective now that it was a good haircut to begin with, but it was certainly better than what I got that day. In fact, I had to sit in her coworker's chair in order for them to fix it. And the coworker was nice enough to try and explain to me that there is in fact a difference between cosmetology training and barber training, and that not every cosmetologist has a lot of experience cutting short hair. And I appreciated that that stylist was willing to explain that to me, because at the time, I didn't know any better. Now, on the subject of my last barber did it differently, we gotta know when to compromise and when to hold your professional standards. Because there are some times when, hey, alright, you prefer your hair being cut with nothing but shears. Okay, I am a professional, I am perfectly capable of doing that. I have tool independence, have that amount of experience. However, there are some people who are straight out of school who only seem to know how to execute a haircut with a very specific tool, and are kind of stuck with that tool as a crutch. I consider that to be fine and worth the compromise, especially if it's for the client's comfort, if they're very sound sensitive and the clipper bothers them. Of course, we're dealing with all ages and neurodiversity, so we want to be able to accommodate anybody who's in our chair as far as those comfort levels go. However, The one haircut that I refuse to cut in my chair because it goes against every minute of my hair training is a bowl cut. That is a haircut that is designed to be done by someone who has no idea how to cut hair. And I will not compromise my professional standards in order to try and achieve a very poor looking haircut. If for no other reason, then I don't want that person walking around with a substandard looking haircut as a billboard coming out of my shop and having my name on that. Nope, not gonna do it. Not even for the lulz. Now let's talk about price discussions. The lovely question of why does it cost more than insert chain salon? It's important to understand that anything in the form of a question be taken in good faith as a matter of curiosity and therefore a desire to be educated. So, politely explaining, breaking down your price structure and the quality of service that you're offering, and the expertise and the schooling, all of those things help to decide how much you're going to charge. Also, sometimes it's a matter of explaining the difference between a haircut and a haircut experience. Sure, there's plenty of places at a particular price point that are offering a get in, get out, boom, 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 10-minute haircut. And if that's what they're going for, that's where they need to be. But you charging more because you're offering an elevated haircut experience is justifiable. And if you're so inclined to take a more pulled back view on it to show them the concept of how a hair professional's business model works, and that, typically we're not traditionally in a W 2 situation, so we have to deal with our own overheads and the fixed as well as variable overhead costs that we deal with as hair professionals. That's just like explaining any other business model to somebody. And when you look at it through that lens, they tend to be a little bit more understanding to where it's not just all this money directly in my pocket. It has to go to other things that help make this entire experience possible. There's also the lovely question of can I get a discount? Now, as an Air Force veteran, I personally, and this is just for me, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I'm personally really uncomfortable ever even broaching the subject of a veteran's discount. I apply that to my business model in that I've never offered service discounts, not for age, whether it's for a kid or a senior, not for gender. A haircut is a haircut. It doesn't matter who it's on, whether it's male, female, anything in between. I've always had a very clear policy that hair has no sex. I'm licensed to cut hair from the neck up as long as it's on a human. It doesn't matter how much you came in with or how much you leave with, it's the same price for a haircut. Now, if it's something that's a variable of a haircut like a skin fade, I have very clear delineations that a skin fade is something you do to a completed haircut. So it's a haircut plus an extra. We're doing an extra shave to remove the leftover stubble. There includes a hot towel with it, so it's an elevated service. It's an add-on addition to, hence its cost being higher. I've also chosen to calculate my price list based on the amount of time it takes me on average to give those services, so that I'm making the same amount of money no matter what service I'm doing by the hour. That way, when I'm doing one service, I'm not wishing that I was making more money doing another service that would take me the same amount of time. If, as part of your marketing plan, you've chosen to offer discounts, then as long as you have a very clear policy already stated, whether it's a loyalty program or a printed or online coupon that they have to come in, whatever your terms are for that discount, make sure that they are meeting them and make sure that you're conveying that effectively. Let's talk about setting and maintaining boundaries. Number one, managing inappropriate requests and conversations. Know where the line is between friendly and too familiar, because you're the one, as the hair professional, who's running the show, who controls this conversation. You have the ability to say stop at any point. If the client is making you or your coworkers uncomfortable, you need to step in, because that person is your responsibility in your chair. You don't have to agree with what they're saying in order for you to end that topic and segue to another. And sometimes a really hard segue is the best communication to somebody that, hey, you've stepped in a hole. Let's get you out of it. And if they're really stubborn and want to keep on that topic, that's when being direct is most likely the best option. Because that person's not going to get subtle hints. They're not going to read the room. They are laser focused on that topic that they want to talk about. And if it's inappropriate, you need to look them in the eye and go, hey man, that's not appropriate right now. We're not going to talk about this. A good client will respect your candor and move on. Bad one is probably one you don't want in your chair in the future. So bye-bye. Now, when do you make that decision to firmly end a service? Well, that has to do with their behavior. Because if it is obvious that they're not taking the hints and they're not taking your direct feedback, you've given them their ample opportunities. I'd say 3 strikes and you're out. I'm talking a hard out. I will take the cape off of you mid service. You are done. I don't want your money. I don't want to see your face again. Goodbye. And if they refuse to leave, that's when we deal with the police. Now, this is not something that is by any means common, but you should be prepared for the unlikely event that it'll happen. That's why setting up security cameras is very important for the safety of you as well as your barbers and your other clients. Number 2, time boundaries and appointment management. What do we do for clients who are habitually late? I employ a system that has lovely reminders that are customizable, and I've set it up to where there is no excuse for anybody being late, barring life getting in the way while they're on their way there. That's when communication is key. So my clients get an email 2 days before their appointment going, hey, you have an appointment coming up. Care to confirm? Click this link. And then they also get a text message an hour before their appointment as another little, like, hey, get ready to go reminder. And I will manually send them an additional text reminder if they haven't confirmed from the email. So realistically, there is no excuse for someone to arrive late or no-show me, unless, again, life happens. There's a car accident, they got stuck in a meeting, but that's when you shoot me a text. I have a messaging system that is built into my software. All they have to do is reply to that automated text reminder and go, hey, I'm running 5-10 minutes late. Not a problem, thanks for letting me know. Or, hey, I won't be able to make it. Can we reschedule? Absolutely. I have a policy that typically any sort of communication from you from the last minute, I'm not going to charge you my cancellation fee. I'm going to reschedule you. It's not a big deal because I appreciate your courtesy of communicating. Now, if you no call, no show me and you want another appointment and you've made no attempt, especially if I couldn't charge your card to reconcile with me, then we're going to have a conversation. Now, as an appointment only barber, gotta love that when they're in the chair and you're starting their haircut service and they go, while you're at it, can you get me a beard trim too? When you have like specific time brackets for particular services. Now, don't get me wrong, they're regular and I know that I usually end their haircut early because I already know what I'm doing. We can be efficient with our time. Most of the time, my answer is, if I have time, we'll see. But if somebody comes in who hasn't had any sort of service in like 4 to 6 months and it's a whole transformation situation, the chances of me having enough time without biting into the next client's allotted time is pretty slim. And I'm going to go, sorry, I won't have time today. I have another client after you, but I'd be happy to book that for your next service. Or I would let them know if I have a spot available later in that day or sometime that week where I could fit them in. I'll offer that. No harm, no foul. And that time allotment that is blocked off for my various services when you book with me is very important because it gives a very clear expectation of how long that service is going to be. So someone else who has a busy schedule and is trying to fit this into their workday through a lunch break or something, it's important for me to be on time as well as them. So I don't want to eat into my other clients' time. I actually care about people's time and schedules. So I'm going to extend them the same courtesy that I expect from them. Number 3, physical boundaries. We are in a service-based industry where we are physically touching people, and specifically, most of the time, their head and face. With that, there's a certain amount of trust they're extending to us because not just anybody is allowed to touch anybody's face, right? If a stranger came up to you and tried to touch your face, you would be like, whoa, what the heck are you doing? Absolutely not. But in our chair, you're actually spending half hour, 45 minutes, 2 feet away from their face. And that's closer than a close talker. Now, we always want to be aware of our surroundings. We want to be aware of where people's hands are, where people's feet are, making sure their hands and legs are inside the right at all times, per se, underneath that cape, making sure we're not getting hair on them. It's all very important. But we also don't want to have those like awkward bumping situations when you're leaning over to trim their mustache and suddenly your hip is next to their knee or their hand is on the armrest of the chair next to something. One of the main things that I learned in school was to never walk in front of your client, and certainly don't stand directly in front of them if you're like trying to do a lineup or a beard trim and you're trying to get it level. That's what the mirror's for. You don't want to be straddling your client as though you're about to give them a lap dance. Probably not the most professional thing to see. But in the same vein, you are the professional. The general understanding is that The client does not touch the professional. Your client has no reason to touch you. Don't let it happen. And if it did happen, you better make sure that they know that it was not okay. In a post-COVID world, we're also still dealing with people wearing masks, not wearing masks, different health concerns, requirements. In the state of New Hampshire, and I would hope in every other state, as a licensed professional, I am bound by law to not administer services to the public while I am sick, and I am required to turn away service for someone that I suspect is sick with any sort of contagious communicable disease. Now, I still have a client or two that when they sit in my chair choose to wear a surgical mask, and that's fine. We got plenty of practice cutting around those over the past 5 or 6 years. And he takes the mask directly off after his service. But that's his prerogative. He wants to wear one during the service. I don't have an issue with it. If someone's trying to get in my chair for a service and they're wearing a mask because they know they're sick, that's a different story. That gets probably a reproachful look from me and going, I think it's probably best we reschedule, because if I get sick from them, that means there's dozens of other people who won't be able to get haircuts for several days. And that's not nice to anyone. Sharing is not caring in that way. Now, how do we deal with clients who don't respect your physical boundaries? You tell them in no uncertain terms what your boundaries are, and if they violate them, you inform them that you will no longer be their professional. End of story. And if they become harassing, then you seek legal action. Is it pleasant? No. But it's for your safety, and that matters. So let's recap. It's really important to listen first to whatever concerns your client is voicing, because it takes courage for them to voice them to you in the first place. Make sure you have clear policies in place in writing so that your clients know what your expectations of them are and what the expectations they should have of you are. It's always important to maintain professionalism. It's not a life or death situation. It's simply getting a service. Both parties have a right to feel comfortable whether you're giving or receiving services. I've had to have plenty of these discussions over the years with my clients. Some, actually most, have gone particularly well, and they appreciate me being very direct with them and informing them, letting them know in a respectful way. A few of them have not gone well. That's okay. It's a learning experience for both of us. I can give you a quick example of what happened when I set a physical boundary with a client as far as respecting my need for a lunch break, because it was a very, very busy day in the barber shop back in the days of walk-in only. And he had been waiting for me for an hour, but I hadn't had time to use the restroom, let alone to put anything in my system. And I politely told him that I was going to run out for about 15 minutes, going to grab a quick bite to eat, and I would be right back to deal with him shortly. And he did not take that well. And to this day, I keep the text message that he sent me after I left, because his reaction to my boundary was, if you don't cut my hair right now, I'm leaving and never coming back. And my response to that was, bye, because I knew that my body needed to eat. And realistically, do you want to be the recipient of a haircut from a really hungry barber? Probably not. If you want to know what that text message said, feel free to leave me a comment down below, and I'll let you know. It's kinda not nice. It's probably the most vile thing anyone's ever said to me. That taught me the lesson that I don't want everyone in my chair. Some people can fuck off. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and let me know what other barber content you'd like to hear. Till next time.